Hey there, Writer Rebels. 2022 is already almost around the corner. So today I'm going to be talking to you about what I'm doing to get ready for planning season. Hello everyone, it's me, Scarlett Kol, young adult author, YouTuber, and storyteller, and I am here today to talk to you about kind of what's been going on with my life this last little while, and I thought that maybe it would be useful to help some people out there as well. So the last little bit, I've actually been attending a lot of conferences and doing a lot of learning. So a few weeks ago, I attended the Romance Author Mastermind Conference, their cute little logo right here, and it was amazing. Like so many great sessions, so many great authors offering tips and experience, and so great. Also, following that, like 2 days later, I was also a virtual attendee for the 20 Books to 50K conference, which is a group that's on Facebook that has a very large conference as well, and they do videotape their sessions for those people that want to do it virtually. So I was a virtual attendee. I had planned to go last year. They rolled my ticket over, but I wasn't really sure how border crossing was going to work. So I just decided to wait it out and watch everything online instead. So maybe next year I'll get to attend. But there were so many great sessions. They were absolutely amazing. I really enjoyed the one about YA with Jillian Dodge. She was really great and she is so inspiring, and I cannot wait to get into my goals for next year to try to get to that level of authordom that she is. Plus, I just recently bought a bunch of craft books. So the Conflict Thesaurus, I also bought the Romance Your Plan by Zoe York, which is really great. And I've just been learning and collecting all of this information. Now it gets to be time that I need to do something with it. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are kind of in the same boat, where it's very exciting and invigorating that you have all of this information, but it's also so amazingly overwhelming that your brain is just like, you have no idea what to do with all of this information. So I needed to come up with a way to actually make this stuff work for me. Because if you're going to sit there and you're going to learn all this stuff, that's awesome. But if you don't actually apply any of it, then it's really not providing you any value. However, you also can't do absolutely everything. It's just not possible. So I needed to find a way that made sense for me, that I felt like I was moving forward and using the information that I learned. However, doing it in a way that wasn't going to put me into burnout by this time next year. Fortunately, a lot of this stuff did happen in November, and I do start planning in November anyways, typically, just because for one reason, I don't like to rush it. If I've come up with some ideas of what I want to do for next year, it gives me some time to mull that over in my head and solidify it and make sure that's really what I want to do. Because there's been lots of times where I'm like, this is a great goal and this is what I want to do. And then a few weeks later, I'm like, yeah, not really. I'd rather do this other thing. Or as I think it through, I've just decided that maybe I'm not ready for that yet, or I would be better going down a different avenue. So this gives me time to do that before I, solidify anything or write my goals down. However, if you ever change a goal, there's nothing saying you can't. If you decide April 1st, this isn't what you want to do, pivot, change it, not a big deal. But if I'm going to be going in with some sort of enthusiasm, I'd like to try and be in the direction that I want to go if I can. And number two, the other reason is I like to set myself up for success. So if I have a goal that is requiring me to do something or start something or a habit in January, then I want to make sure that I have the building blocks in place to do that. So if I want to have a better organization system, I'm going to want to do that shopping trip to Staples a little bit sooner so that everything's ready and organized for January 1st. And I'm not trying to build the system while I'm trying to follow it. Or, if I say that I want to do better at advertising, maybe I want to book some stuff for January to already get myself set up. If I'm starting a brand new book, spend some time, outlining or thinking about it. So by looking at some of these goals earlier and kind of having an idea of what I want to do going into January, it gives me some time to really get a handle on what I need to start this thing, accomplish this thing, and start putting those ducks in a row, pieces in order. And the other reason I'm looking at this right now is that I really just need some positive momentum at this point. I've had a really rough year kind of writing and creatively. If you've been watching my vlogs, I've done some really cool stuff. I've done some neat hardcovers. I've done some cool things with my work. I've signed on for some really awesome events, really great stuff. However, the words just haven't been coming. And I've really been struggling with that. And part of it, I think, too, is I kind of expect that as soon as I jump back into writing, that it's just going to flow and it's going to be easy like it had been the last time I was working on a project, but it's just like working out or something like that, where, if you don't work out for 8 months, when you get back on that treadmill, you aren't going to run a marathon all of a sudden, right? Like, you need to work yourself back up. You need to take those times every single day. And so I've been doing a lot of like work on myself over the last little while. I've been taking some of the Becca Syme courses to try and like get into that headspace. And I'm finally starting to get that flow down now. And I do have like some mini goals that I did set for myself just to get the momentum going so I can get myself into January and, pushing forward and in a positive spirit instead of just holding off until the end of the year for no particular reason and then trying to jump back into it. So, starting small, putting in those baby steps. But what I want to do is try to make a plan that makes sense for me and to keep me moving forward, because hopefully I'm going to have some of that momentum by the time we get to the end of December. Anyhow, before I jump into how I'm planning for everything, I just wanted to say thank you so much for all of my subscribers for coming back week after week. I really enjoy all of your comments, and I love all of the support that you guys are giving me all the time. It's so, so, so awesome. And if you're not a subscriber, it's an easy thing to do. Hit that subscription bar and the notification bell below this video. And while you're down there, make sure to hit the like button to let YouTube know this is something worth watching. All right, so what am I doing with all of this information? I'm talking notebooks and notebooks of information. Well, I'm basically breaking everything down into 3 lists. And this is something I started a few weeks ago. I am doing this electronically, but you could do this on paper. I do have like a secondary thing on paper, so I can put things in my list later, but I don't forget about stuff. Personally, I don't like to put it in one particular notebook just because it kind of limits you on how much you can write. So I usually get 3 different pads of paper because I have done this method before. Or I will use separate tabs in like an Excel document. I personally love Excel. You guys know this. Or you could use a Word document or whatever you want to do to compile this stuff together. But I like to keep 3 separate lists. One is called foundational. The second is growth. And the third is challenge. So what are these things exactly? Foundational are those things that you need to do on a regular basis to keep your author business going, or that you usually do on a regular basis. So this could be something like getting into your manuscript every day, writing 10,000 words a month, or writing 100 words a week. Or if you don't necessarily like word count goals, it could be, doing 10 sprints a week or spending 10 hours in my manuscript, whatever it happens to be. It could also be something like posting on your social media, doing your YouTube videos, or any of those things that kind of make sense to your author career and where you are at your particular time. The second concept is growth. So these are basically things that are kind of next steps for you that you haven't necessarily ventured into, or you're kind of pivoting a little bit. So this could be, for instance, jumping into a new series, or it could be, expanding into additional formats with your books like I did this year with, some hardcovers and stuff like that. I will get into some more examples in a minute, but those are these things that, will kind of bring you to the next level, but are not necessarily outside of your wheelhouse yet. And the third thing is challenge. So these are the ones that, this is where I'm going to really go through my notes and pick out all of those things that I would really, really love to do and haven't. Either I don't have the expertise, or, I just haven't gone there yet, or maybe it's still just that far away from me in my author career. But I'm going to write all of those things down. It could be something like, submitting stuff to foreign reading apps. It could be something like getting into audiobooks if you've never done audiobooks before. So these could be things that are kind of on your horizon, things that you would really like to try out, but you just haven't before. It could be something as simple as, getting into Facebook ads if you've never done that before. It really depends on where you are with your author career. So these are going to be lists. They could be very, very long. My foundational list is usually the longest because I have a lot of things that I need to do with that. And I usually try to be as specific as possible. This is the reason I really like doing this electronically, is because I can put in as much information as I need to. And for some of the challenge stuff, I can put in some of those notes that I've seen through all of the sessions and things that I've gone through for various conferences or things I've picked up in books. So for instance, like my foundational stuff, if I'm saying social media is on my foundational list, then I'm going to put, about how many posts a week that I want to have in there, as well as what social media things I'm posting on. Maybe it'll be a separate thing for Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, however you want to organize it and whatever makes sense to you. Obviously, this is going to change depending on what kind of writer you are and where you are in your career. If you are a very, very new writer, then this is probably going to be a lot shorter lists, and they're going to be very different. So your list might be something foundational of, writing twice a week. Number 2, growth could be, finally giving your work to beta readers, letting people look at it, revise it. And that challenge thing might be, looking into agents or maybe sending that query letter. Or you could even back that up a step. Maybe it's just, writing consistently for your foundational, writing the end as your growth thing because you finally need to finish the book. And your challenge thing is actually letting somebody read that writing. So it could be very simple and it could have very minimal steps. However, if you are a very prolific author that's been in this for a while, your steps are going to look very, very different. Your foundational stuff might be things like social media, or it could even be, I have to release these 3 books because these are the series that pay my bills. So, I have to keep consistently releasing in those. And your growth stuff would obviously be a little bit different. So this might be, expanding into another series or starting a pen name to try a different genre, or, at this point, it might be expanding into audiobooks because it's not necessarily that much of a leap for you, but it is the next step for a lot of the things you've already done. And you may have already done audiobooks for some of your other things already. It's just expanding what you're already doing. And that challenge stuff is probably going to be things that, that beginning writer just really isn't ready for. It might be trying to go to an international signing, getting translations if you want to try something in a different country. Maybe it is that advertising or scaling up to a specific level of advertising if that's what you want to do. For me, I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. So my foundational stuff is going to be, my regular things like social media and all that kind of stuff. My growth opportunity stuff is actually going to be releasing a new series. So I do want to get on top of a new series, assuming that I can do that, and looking at those sorts of things. Foundational, obviously for me, especially since I've been struggling, is to be writing consistently. And my challenge stuff, I have a lot of really cool things that I've learned in these conferences that I want to give a try, and hopefully will make for entertaining value for you guys for next year. So what do you want to do with these lists, and how many things you want to have on there? As many as you want, as many as you need. It doesn't really matter. The nice thing about this is you can keep these lists at the end, revisit them next year, add to it. Maybe you've forgotten about some things that were on there that you were interested in. You can come back to them later. Or maybe if you try some of these challenge things and they work out really well, or you finish them early, maybe you want to jump on to the next thing. Having these lists is really helpful to see where you want to go. And depending on where your author career ends up, maybe some of these challenges will be your growth steps next year. So how do I analyze these lists now that I have them? Well, foundational, a lot of people will probably argue with me that this isn't a huge thing in terms of planning, in terms of goals, because it's like, this is the stuff you do every day. It's not necessarily kind of goal setting. But for me, my rationale is that it takes time. And a lot of these foundational things can take up the most amount of time. So considering I'm not a full-time writer, I have a full-time job, I have other commitments in my life, like a lot of people do, then I only have a limited amount of time that I can put towards my author business and my YouTube and all of that kind of stuff. So I need to make sure that everything that I'm planning for actually fits into my schedule. So when I'm looking at my foundational things, I'm looking for pretty much 3 things. Number 1, how much time do all of these things take? This is also why I like to use Excel, because I can put things on the side. But that's me. You do you. How much time do these things take per week, per month, whatever? And what is the frequency that I'm doing them? So let's say I'm posting 3 times a week on Instagram. Well, is that enough? Should I be doing more, do I think? And just kind of evaluating that task, what the frequency is or what I would like it to be. And then once I get to the end of that list, the other thing I want to look at is, does that make sense? Just because I do these sorts of things and I think they're reasonable, are these the things that I need to be doing? And I want to analyze each and every item to make sure that this is something that I honestly feel is something that is foundational to my author career. Maybe there are things on there that I just do all the time that aren't necessarily pushing me forward or are just a big time suck. Maybe I need to either downplay them. Maybe posting on Instagram 3 times a week is too much and 1 time a week is going to be enough. I'm sure most people will argue with me. It's just hypothetical. Anyways, maybe posting less would be more beneficial to give me more writing time. So you want to really analyze each of those pieces and see which ones make sense for you. If you're further along in your career or you have more expendable income, this can also be the point where you're looking at these things and seeing what you can outsource to save yourself some more time or just sanity, not having to deal with them. So that's basically what I'm going to do with that foundational thing. And I'm going to take a look at how much time those things take me over the course of a year. So how much is that leaving for everything else? And that's going to be really important when I take a look at my growth and challenge items, because if I have a lot of time, I can take on more tasks. And if I don't, I need to be very selective in what I'm choosing for my next two lists. So the next list is going to be the growth list. So these are the next steps. These are the next things that I want to get on top of. For me, a lot of this is going to be where my release schedule comes in, because I really only have one ongoing series at this point, which I would consider foundational because I've kind of made that commitment to my readers to keep going with that. But everything I do in terms of releases now is hopefully to grow my platform. So that's where a lot of this piece is going to be as well, and a few other things that are just going to be next steps for me. There's three things that I'm looking for when I'm analyzing these. And actually, I've created little columns down the side to do that. You could color code them however you want. You could re-rank them. This is why electronic works easier sometimes to be able to move data around. But I'm taking a look at, number one, is there anything that's long overdue or pressing? Sometimes we have a task that has been kind of on our list for a really long time. We know it's going to make a difference for us. We just haven't got around to it. So if it's something that falls under that kind of category, I'm going to mark that. And the second thing I'm going to look at is how much it's really going to move the needle for me, or how much growth I think I'm going to get out of it. And is the kind of growth that I want. So if it's moving me in the direction that I want to go, then it's obviously going to be ranked a little bit higher. For instance, if I'm talking about releasing a new series versus maybe creating audiobooks for some of my existing books, then if I'm trying to build my backlist and I want to grow my readership, because these are some of my goals that I want to have, then doing a new series is going to move that needle for me a whole lot more than doing an audiobook is going to do. That's going to bring in audiobook fans, and there could be some definite growth there by having that audiobook option. But if my goals are to, increase my backlist, then this is going to move that needle in that direction a whole lot more. So that one's going to be ranked a little bit higher than my audiobook. And the third thing I take a look at is what excites me. What are the things on that list that I'm really excited to get into? Because these ones, I definitely want them to hold weight. You want to be excited about what you're doing. It doesn't necessarily mean the thing you're most excited about fits in with those other categories, and you really should probably be doing some of the other things, but it is something that should weigh into it. If you're debating between two options, go with the one that makes your heart sing, that makes you excited to do it. You're probably going to go into it with a little bit more enthusiasm than you would with the other item. So that's kind of how I look at it. And then the third list, obviously, is the challenge list. So this one will be a little bit different, because obviously you're probably going to have things on your challenge list that you're just not ready for. And, you don't want to fall into fear either. There's a lot of things that are probably going to be on this list that you're scared to do, that you just haven't got around to because there's that little nagging voice in the back of your head saying you're not ready or you're not good enough or whatever. So, you don't want to fall prey to fear, but on the same note, there are some things that you're just not there for. Like, for instance, with me, I'm not ready for translations. I could translate some of my books, but I really don't have a ton of series or follow through to really make it make sense to try to open up into this other market. I need to spend more time mastering my own market right now before I start expanding into other ones. So even though it's probably on my challenge list, it is, I'm not necessarily going to jump into that, at least not next year, maybe the year after. Maybe by this time next year, I will be ready for that, but I'm not right now. So it's going to be ranked a little bit lower on the list, where there's certain things that are going to make sense for me going forward that will probably push me a little bit further, but I've never, got the gumption to do. So I'm kind of going to look at them on the same sort of rubric that I did for the growth items. So I'm going to look at those things that excite me. Obviously, if I'm excited about it, then this is something that I'm probably going to put my heart and soul into. Those things that are really going to move the needle for me. What are those things that make sense towards the goals that I'm working towards? So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to rank them by ones that I'm at least somewhat ready for, things that excite me, and things that are going to move the needle. So what do you do with all this stuff now that you've figured it out? You've ranked everything. It's color coded. It's beautiful. Well, now you're going to transfer that information into your plans for the year. So the foundational stuff is probably going to be your longest list. It's probably going to go like this. So your foundational stuff is going to be that day-to-day stuff you're going to do on a regular basis. This is the stuff, you write in your planner to get done every single week. So I like to keep a master list of these things so I don't forget exactly what it is that, I need to do. A lot of it is second nature, but looking at those things and following a plan of what I want to do. Secondly is going to be growth. The list of things that I'm going to do for growth is going to be a lot less than my foundational stuff because there's only so many things you can do and so many ways you can pull yourself. So based on how much time I have left, so I'm taking a look at my life, I'm taking a look at those foundational things that make sense that I'm going to keep doing, how they fit into my schedule. I'm going to look at how much time I have left and then see what growth opportunities I can get into that I have time for. So I really need to be realistic and reasonable with myself. And that's something that everybody has to decide for themselves how much that is. That could be one thing. It could be 5. It could be 10. Whatever. But the nice thing about having this list is if you do accomplish it early, you've got somewhere else to go after instead of being like a raft on the ocean and just floating along to the next thing. And the third thing, obviously, is going to be the challenge list. The challenge list will probably have the least amount of things that you're doing from it. So for some people, that could just be 1 item. It could be 2, it could be 3. But these are the things that are kind of going to push you out of your comfort zone, hopefully bring you to the next level. They may fail. Lots of things fail. So that's okay too. But these are the things that at least one that you're going to try next year, whether it just be researching ads and not necessarily putting the money into it quite yet if you're not ready for it, or prepping yourself to get ready to try something new. It may not work out. It may be the best thing that ever happened to you. But if you aren't putting these kind of like stretch challenge goals into your plan, you're just going to keep spinning your wheels and staying in the same place. So this is how I've broke down all this information, and it has been really, really helpful for me with helping with this overwhelm. First off, it's gotten all of those things out of my brain and on a piece of paper. I know now that I'm not going to forget all the stuff that I've learned. For the stuff where I have notes, I have transferred some of those notes into my challenge list and into my growth list. So I can put those things in there and slot them in accordingly. And I'm not going to miss it. I'm not going to forget about it. I'm not going to misplace it because it's on my computer, and I will be able to reference it whenever I need to. So that's kind of taken a big weight off my brain. Plus, it's been a good way for me to matrix what makes sense for me in my life, what I can reasonably do. Everybody kind of wants to do all the things, but there's just not enough time for that. I know I don't have enough time for that, but if you give me the chance, I will definitely try. So this way, it keeps me from overexerting myself. It gives me my next steps on where to go, and it gets me in a really good place to make my goals and plans for 2022. So hopefully that all made sense, but this is basically how I have been working through the things in my brain and setting myself up for success in 2022, hopefully. So if you have any other methods that you use on how to organize information or decide on what you're going to be trying next, please leave that in the comments, as I would love to hear about it. If you do try this out, let me know how it works for you. It's just a fun little exercise to try out, and worst comes to worst, if it doesn't work for you or you start using it and it ends up being overwhelming or useless, nobody's holding you to this. Nobody's saying you have to finish it. This is all just for yourself, for your own self-development. So hopefully I'm going to come up with some really great goals for the year. You're going to check out those videos at the end of December where I take a look at how I did on last year's goals and the goals that I'm going to set up for next year, which should probably be very different than the ones I had set up for this year. If you like this content, make sure you're hitting the thumbs up below this video to let YouTube know it's something worth watching. And if you want to hang out with me some more, you can always hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so they will let you know every time I put out a new video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next week. Next week, obviously, is going to be a NaNoWriMo update. I have been working on it. It's been interesting. Let's put it that way.